A stray K9 German Shepherd, broken and desperate, leapt into my car one rainy afternoon. Her eyes pleaded with me to save the tiny life she clutched close to her heart. You think you're just helping its Sunday and her pup survive another night. But what unfolds will change everything you thought you knew about loyalty, courage, and the invisible bonds that tie us together. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any of our inspiring true stories that celebrate the strength of resilience and the power of compassion. The rain came down in heavy sheets, blurring the world into smudges of gray and silver. It hammered against the windshield of Tyler's old Jeep, the wipers struggling to keep up as he drove the empty stretch of country road. He wasn't even supposed to be out here. A wrong turn after visiting a friend had sent him miles off the highway. His GPS was useless, circling endlessly, looking for a signal that wouldn't come. Cursing under his breath, Tyler squinted through the rain. That's when he saw it, a flash of movement darting across the road, too fast and too low to be human. He slammed the brakes. The tires skidded on the wet asphalt before coming to a shuddering stop. There, standing in the middle of the road, soaked to the bone and trembling, was a German Shepherd. At first, Tyler thought she was just another stray, another casualty of abandonment. Her fur was matted and muddy, ribs pressing sharply against her skin. But it was the way she looked at him, directly into his eyes, unblinking, that made him pause. Then she did something that made his heart twist. She bolted toward his Jeep. Before he could even react, the dog leapt up against the door, pawing frantically at the handle, her nails scraping against the metal. She whined, a high, desperate sound raw with fear and urgency. Without thinking, Tyler unlocked the door. The shepherd jumped in, shaking water everywhere. She didn't bark, didn't growl. Instead, she curled her body around something hidden in the tattered blanket she carried in her mouth. That's when Tyler realized she wasn't alone. A tiny, shivering puppy, a miniature version of her, was tucked inside the folds of the wet cloth. The baby whimpered softly, so small Tyler could have held him in one hand. For a moment, Tyler could only stare. The mother lifted her pleading eyes to his again, and without words, she spoke. Please, help him. Save him. The Jeep's heater hummed weakly, barely denting the chill that had seeped into the air. Tyler swallowed hard, feeling an ache grow in his chest. Okay, he said aloud, not even sure he was talking to himself or to her. Okay, girl, I got you. The dog lay down instantly on the passenger seat, pulling the puppy tighter against her. She let out a low whine of relief, as if she knew her desperate gamble had worked. Tyler glanced around. No houses, no other cars, just endless rain and the whispering trees. Whoever had abandoned this brave mother and her pup had left them to die alone out here. Not on my watch, he thought fiercely, shifting the Jeep into gear. Tyler turned the vehicle around, heading back the way he came. He didn't know where he was going exactly. Maybe a vet, if he could find one open this late. Maybe just home. But he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't about to let this little family down. As the miles passed, Tyler kept glancing over at the mother dog. Her eyes stayed locked on him, weary but full of something else too. Something fragile and aching. Hope. But as he pressed his foot down on the gas, the Jeep jolted suddenly. Tyler cursed again. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then died completely, leaving them stranded in the middle of nowhere. The rain poured harder. The night grew darker, and Tyler realized that rescuing them was going to be much harder and far more dangerous than he ever expected. Would he find help in time, or had he just promised more than he could deliver? The rain pounded against the roof of the stalled Jeep, an unrelenting drumbeat of urgency. Tyler sat, gripping the steering wheel, feeling the cold seep into his skin, realizing that he and the fragile lives now depending on him were completely alone. The German Shepherd shifted nervously on the seat beside him, nudging her baby closer to her body to shield him from the cold. The little pup whimpered weakly, his tiny body trembling against his mother's chest. Tyler leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes for a second, weighing his options. He had no cell signal, no clear idea where the nearest town was, and no one knew he was even out here. He looked over at the mother dog. Her eyes locked onto his again, full of a raw, painful trust that sent a ripple of guilt through his chest. He had to do something now. "I'm not going to let you down," he muttered under his breath. Pulling his jacket off, he reached over and gently covered the puppy with it. The mother growled softly at first, a protective reflex, but then, sensing his intentions, she let him tuck her baby beneath the warm cloth. She even nudged the jacket tighter with her nose, as if helping him. Tyler zipped up his thin hoodie, braced himself, and stepped out into the storm. The world outside was a wall of water. The wind howled through the trees, and the mud sucked at his boots as he trudged around to the back of the Jeep. Popping the trunk, he had one emergency kit, basic stuff, a flashlight, a few protein bars, a thermal blanket. It wasn't much, but it was something. He grabbed the blanket and raced back to the front, teeth chattering. Inside, the Jeep was already colder, the storm stealing away what little warmth was left. He wrapped the mother and her baby together, cocooning them as best he could. The mother licked her baby's head gently, the softest, saddest sound escaping her throat. Tyler's heart broke all over again. "I'm going to find us a way out," he promised. He turned the key again, nothing, just a dry, dead click. Cursing under his breath, Tyler climbed back out and popped the hood. He knew a little about cars, enough to recognize when something was completely shot. Water had probably fried the engine. They were well and truly stuck. He looked down the dark road, barely able to see a few feet ahead through the rain. No lights, no houses, no passing cars. They couldn't stay here, not all night. Glancing back at the Jeep, Tyler made a decision that would change everything. He ran to the passenger side, opened the door, and scooped the bundled mother and pup into his arms. The German shepherd whimpered in alarm but didn't resist. Somehow, she trusted him enough to allow it. Cradling them against his chest, Tyler started walking. Step by step, he pushed into the darkness, the rain lashing against his face, the mud pulling at his feet. He had no destination, no map, just one thought pounding in his head over and over: keep them safe. The cold cut into him like knives. His muscles burned, his shoes were soaked and heavy, but he kept going, because every time he thought about stopping, every time the weight of his arms became too much, he would glance down and see the tiny pup's nose peeking out of the jacket, alive, breathing, and he knew he couldn't give up. Somewhere far ahead, a faint glow flickered through the trees. Tyler's heart jumped. Was it a house? A gas station? He pushed faster, ignoring the way his lungs screamed for air, the way his vision blurred from exhaustion. The German shepherd lifted her head weakly, sensing the change, her body pressing closer to his. Hope? It was small, faint, but it was enough. Tyler stumbled forward, clutching the two lives that had been thrown into his world, not by accident, but by fate, and he silently prayed he wasn't too late. Would he reach help in time, or would the night claim all three of them before morning came? Tyler's legs felt like they were moving through cement. Every step forward was a battle against the mud, the rain, the biting cold that had long since soaked into his bones. His arms ached from holding the bundled German shepherd and her fragile pup, but he clutched them tighter, drawing strength from the desperate rise and fall of their tiny chests against his own. The flickering light he had seen to the trees grew closer, clearer, a porch light, a house, barely standing, sagging under the weight of the storm, but a house nonetheless. Relief flooded him so fast he nearly collapsed. He stumbled up the overgrown path and banged his fist against the door, once, twice, though it shuddered under his hand. For a long, terrifying moment, there was only silence. Then the door creaked open a few inches, and an old woman peered out, a heavy shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Her eyes immediately dropped to the bundle in his arms, widening in shock. "Please," Tyler gasped. "They need help. The baby, he's freezing." Without a word, she yanked the door wider and stepped aside, motioning him in. The warmth hit Tyler like a tidal wave. The house smelled with smoke and something sweet, maybe apples, and he almost sagged to the ground in gratitude. A fireplace crackled in the corner, its orange light casting dancing shadows across the worn floor. "Over here," the woman said, guiding him toward an old couch piled with quilts. He lowered the mother and her pup down as gently as he could. The German shepherd whimpered but stayed curled around her baby, watching Tyler with wide, glassy eyes that still somehow burned with trust. The old woman moved swiftly, disappearing into another room, and returning with towels, bowls of water, and an ancient heating pad. "You're lucky you found us," she said as she worked, her hands surprisingly steady. Or maybe they're lucky they found you. Tyler watched as she gently dried the mother dog's fur, rubbing the tiny puppy between her palms to stimulate warmth. The pup let out a feeble squeak, causing the mother to lick him urgently. "Will they make it?" Tyler asked, voice raw. The woman hesitated, frowning in concentration. "They've got a fighting chance," she said. "But the little one, he's weak. Real weak." Tyler swallowed hard. He had seen enough loss in his life to know the odds were stacked against him. But looking into the mother dog's desperate, exhausted eyes, he knew surrender was not an option. "I'll stay," he said without thinking. "I'll do whatever it takes." The woman nodded approvingly, as if she had been testing him, and he had passed. Through the night, Tyler and the woman, whose name was Martha, took turns tending to the dogs. Tyler spoon-fed the mother bits of broth, coaxing her to drink tiny sips. Martha carefully wrapped the puppy in soft cloths, laying him on the heating pad in between snuggling sessions with his mother. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside that little living room, something different took root, a stubborn, fragile hope. At some point, as dawn began to bleed pink into the sky, the mother dog stirred and shifted. She nudged her puppy toward Tyler's chest, then rested her head heavily against his arm, letting out a sigh so deep and so exhausted that it seemed to empty her very soul. Tyler realized in that moment that she had done everything she could. She was trusting him now, trusting him to carry what she no longer had the strength to bear alone. He gently tucked the puppy closer to his heart, feeling its tiny heartbeat flutter against his ribs. "I've got you," he whispered. "I promise." But even as the morning light grew stronger, a darker question gnawed at the edges of his mind. Had they found safety too late, or was fate still holding its cruel hand above them, waiting to strike? Morning light spilled through the cracked windows, casting long beams of gold across the small living room. The storm had finally passed, but its wrath remained in every broken branch and muddy trail outside. Inside, however, a different kind of battle was being fought, a battle measured not in miles or storms, but in heartbeats. Tyler sat on the floor by the fireplace, his back aching, his hands numb with exhaustion, yet he barely noticed. All his focus was locked on the tiny pup nestled in his lap, wrapped tightly in cloth, his little sides moving in shallow, struggling breaths. The mother German shepherd lay nearby, her head resting weakly on her paws, eyes half closed but always flickering toward her baby. Every time the pup whimpered, she would lift her head, too weak to move but unwilling to stop trying. Martha returned from the kitchen, a bowl of warm goat's milk in her hands. "Here," she said, handing Tyler a small syringe. "We'll try a few drops. Maybe it'll give him the strength he needs." Tyler's hands trembled as he filled the syringe and gently coaxed it to the puppy's mouth. The pup latched on instinctively, suckling with a desperate greed that made Tyler's heart surge with hope. "That's it, little guy," he murmured. "That's it." The mother gave a soft whine of encouragement, her eyes never leaving them. Martha settled into the rocking chair with a sigh, watching silently. After a long moment, she said, "You know, sometimes it's not the strongest who survive. It's the ones who refuse to give up." Tyler nodded, swallowing the lump that had formed in his throat. He didn't know much about fate, but he knew about fighting for life when the world tried to rip it from you. He knew about losing people you loved and swearing you'd never let it happen again. And somehow he knew, deep in his bones, that this fight wasn't just about saving a dog and her baby. It was about saving something in himself, too. Hours blurred together in a haze of feeding, wiping, warming. Every small victory, a stronger suckle, a louder whimper, felt like a miracle. Every moment the puppy's chest rose and fell was a triumph. But just as Tyler dared to believe they might win, the puppy's body seized in his hands. "No!" he gasped, panic surging through him. "No, no, stay with me." The tiny pup stiffened, then went terrifyingly still. The mother barked, a weak, broken sound of alarm. Martha was instantly at Tyler's side, grabbing the puppy and beginning gentle compressions with 2 fingers. "Come on, baby," she whispered fiercely. "Come back." Tyler knelt beside her, helpless, his heart hammering against his ribs so hard he thought it might break. Seconds felt like hours. The room held its breath. Then a faint, weak gasp. The puppy jerked, a tiny spasm of life. And then another. His side began to move again, each breath shallow but stubborn. He was alive. Tyler let out a sound between a sob and a laugh, burying his face in his hand for a moment, overwhelmed. The mother dog struggled to her feet, wobbling, and licked her baby's face over and over, whining softly. "He's a fighter," Martha said, her voice thick with emotion, "just like his mama." Tyler nodded, wiping his face roughly. "Yeah," he said hoarsely. "Yeah, he is." Carefully, he cradled the pup back against his chest, feeling the faint but steady thump of his heartbeat against his palm. Outside, the storm had washed the world clean. The sky stretched wide and blue overhead. Birds sang in the dripping trees. Life, fragile, defiant, unstoppable, had found a way. But Tyler knew their battle wasn't over yet. The puppy had survived the night. Now they had to survive the days to come. And Tyler, for the first time in a long time, was ready for the fight. He wasn't going to walk away, not this time. Yet, as the sun rose higher, a new danger loomed on the horizon, one that would test Tyler, the mother, and her pup in ways none of them could have foreseen. The sun rose higher, casting long beams of light across the small house, but the warmth outside did little to ease the growing tension inside. Tyler paced near the fireplace, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, stealing glances of the mother German shepherd and her tiny pup nestled safely in a makeshift bed of blankets. They were alive, and for now that was enough. But something gnawed at the edge of Tyler's mind, a feeling he couldn't shake. Martha noticed his unease as she stirred a pot of soup on the stove. "You're not thinking about leaving, are you?" she asked over her shoulder. Tyler shook his head. "No, never. I'm worried. Someone abandoned them out there. Someone cruel enough to leave a mother and her baby to die." He didn't say what else he feared, that whoever left him behind might come looking to finish what they started. Martha gave a small hum of agreement, but didn't push the conversation further. She understood that kind of darkness. She had seen enough in her long life to know that not every threat came wearing a monster's face. Late that afternoon, while Tyler repaired a broken piece of the fence in back, he heard the crunch of tires on gravel. His heart immediately jumped into his throat. He wiped his hands on his jeans and walked around the house, just in time to see an old, rusted pickup truck pulling onto Martha's property. Two men sat inside, hard-faced and hollow-eyed, the kind of men Tyler instinctively knew to distrust. One of them, a wiry man with a cigarette dangling from his lips, leaned out the window. "You seen a dog around here?" he called out, his tone casual but his eyes sharp, scanning every inch of the yard. Tyler forced a smile. "No dogs here, man. Just me and my aunt." He lied easily. The man narrowed his eyes, clearly not convinced. "She's a German shepherd. Had a litter not long ago. Worth some good money. Got loose a couple days back." Tyler's blood boiled. So they hadn't abandoned her out of cruelty alone. They'd left her fend for herself because she wasn't profitable enough anymore. He tightened his jaw. "Haven't seen anything like that." The other man, bigger and heavier, muttered something under his breath and spat onto the gravel. "You sure about that?" Tyler met his gaze without blinking. "Positive." After a long, tense moment, the wiry man shrugged and tapped a cigarette out the window. "All right, but if you see her, she ain't yours. She's ours. We'll be back around." The truck rolled away slowly, tires spitting gravel. Tyler watched them go, fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. When he went back inside, Martha was waiting. "They know," she said simply. Tyler nodded, fury simmering just under his skin. "They're not taking her. Or her pup." Martha's face was calm, but her eyes were fierce. "Then we'd better be ready." That night, Tyler didn't sleep. He sat in an old armchair by the window, a heavy flashlight and a rusty shotgun resting on the floor beside him. The mother dog lay nearby, her body curled protectively around her baby. Hours passed. The wind howled against the eaves. Every creak of the house made Tyler's pulse spike. Sometime past midnight, he saw headlights slicing through the darkness again. They were back. Tyler stood, his body tense, every muscle coiled like a spring. He wasn't afraid for himself. He had faced worse. But for the first time in a long time, he had someone worth fighting for. He moved toward the door silently, the mother dog rising to follow him. Her ears pricked, her body low and ready. This time, they wouldn't run. This time, they would stand their ground, because this little family had already been abandoned once. Tyler would make sure it never happened again. But as the truck door slammed outside and footsteps approached the porch, Tyler realized some battles aren't won with fists or fury, but with heart. And he was willing to risk everything to protect the two lives that had trusted him with theirs. The knock at the door was sharp, demanding. Tyler felt every nerve in his body scream to act, to protect. He turned briefly to the German shepherd lying behind him, her body coiled around her puppy like a living shield. Her eyes locked onto his, no fear, only fierce loyalty. She was ready to fight beside him if it came to that. Another pound at the door. Martha appeared in the hallway, holding the old shotgun across her arms. She nodded at Tyler. No words needed. They were in this together. Tyler took a deep breath, steadied himself, and opened the door just a crack. The wiry man from the truck stood there, his cigarette stub now a wet, limp strand hanging from his mouth. Behind him, the bigger man hovered, his fists clenched at his sides. "We know you're hiding her," the wiry one said, stepping forward. "Hand her over, and we won't have no problems." Tyler stepped outside, blocking the doorway with his body. "You abandoned her," he said, voice low and steady. "She doesn't belong to you anymore." The man laughed, an ugly, hollow sound. "That's not how it works, boy. Dogs are property. She's ours. And that pup of hers? Worth a fortune." Tyler's stomach twisted. He could feel the mother dog at his back, sensing the tension, a soft growl vibrating in her throat. "You're not taking them," Tyler said. "Not tonight, not ever." The bigger man took a step forward, towering over him. "You gonna stop us?" Tyler didn't flinch. "Yeah, I am." Behind him, Martha cocked the shotgun, the sound loud and sharp in the wet night air. The two men hesitated. They hadn't expected resistance, certainly not from a skinny guy and a woman old enough to be their mother. The wiry man narrowed his eyes, calculating. "This ain't over," he spat, turning back toward the truck. "You're right," Tyler called after him. "It's just beginning." The truck roared back down the driveway, spitting mud and gravel. Tyler watched until the tail lights disappeared into the trees. Only then did he sag against the doorframe, heart hammering in his chest. Martha placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "You did good, son." He nodded, too drained to speak. Inside, the mother German shepherd licked her puppy's tiny head, then looked up at Tyler with eyes full of trust and something deeper, gratitude. Tyler sank to his knees beside her, burying his hands in her wet fur. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "You've been through enough. I promise you, no one will ever hurt you again." The mother dog pressed her head into his chest, and for the first time since that rainy night on the road, Tyler felt something inside him shift. Something wounded and hollow finally begin to heal. The next morning, Tyler loaded the mother and her pup carefully into Martha's battered old station wagon. They couldn't stay here. It wasn't safe anymore. As he drove toward the nearest town, the German shepherd sat beside him in the passenger seat, the puppy cradled gently in her paws. Tyler smiled at her, reaching over to scratch behind her ears. "We're going to find you a real home," he said. "A place where you'll be loved, protected. Maybe with me if you'll let me." The mother tilted her head, ears perking up, and for the first time, Tyler thought he saw a glimmer of the dog she was meant to be, strong, proud, full of spirit. She had just needed someone to believe in her, and maybe he had needed her just as much. As they crossed into the town limits, the sun rose higher, bathing the road in warm gold. It felt like a new beginning. But deep down, Tyler knew their journey wasn't over. Healing takes more than promises. Trust takes more than saving. It takes time, patience, heart. And Tyler was ready to give them all three. Because sometimes The family you need finds you in the most unexpected ways, lost, broken, desperate for a chance. And when they do, you don't let go. Not for anything. But just when Tyler thought the worst was behind them, an unexpected turn of events would test their bond in ways they never could have imagined. The adoption center was small, tucked between a bakery and an old barber shop, but it smelled of hope. Tyler walked through the door with a German shepherd by his side, and her puppy cradled carefully in his arms. Everyone turned to look, some smiling, others gasping softly at the sight of the mother's tired, noble eyes and the pup's tiny nose peeking out from a jacket. The woman at the counter came around immediately, kneeling to meet the mother's gaze. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "And you're brave." Tyler filled out the forms with a hand that didn't shake until it came to one final question. "Do you intend to adopt?" He stared at it, heart pounding, and then slowly he checked the box. "Yes." The mother leaned against his leg, her body relaxing for the first time since he had met her. The puppy whimpered softly, but it was a sound of life, not fear. They had found him on that stormy road, desperate and broken. Now he was finding them a home, not in a building, but in his heart. And they would never be abandoned again. Because sometimes you don't rescue them. They rescue you. If this story touched your heart, remember, loyalty, courage, and second chances can change everything. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this story with someone who believes in the power of compassion. Together, we can keep spreading hope, one life at a time.